of foreign nationals? Are there sleeper cells among us of things that are worse than foreign nationals? We answer both of those questions in the affirmative tonight on the Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Who is able to make war with him?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Midnight Ride. My great pleasure, as always, to invite all of you into the Puritan Barn and into the Now You See TV studios for the Midnight Ride with myself and John Pounders. Tonight, what a great topic. How timely and how important sleeper cells among us. We're going to be taking a deep dive into this subject, and the dive starts right now because we are now
live. What's up, guys? It's good to see you once again live from the Puritan Barn. Let us know how you guys are in the chat. And tonight, this is one of those subjects that nobody really likes to talk about, but it's really important. A lot of new things have developed, more threats. A lot of people are on high alert, and I think for good reason. And we're going to talk about some of those things, and also how, as the remnant of God, how should we respond to these things? We have special things going on tonight. We're also having Mike Edwards. I talked with him yesterday, and we recorded things. Mike Edwards is a former Special Forces, former Ranger, and still has intel with inside that he is going to share with us tonight about sleeper cells. So stay tuned tonight, man. This is going to be awesome. Really excited about it. David, how has your week been?
Been very good, very thankful. And the Lord is answering prayers, and that always gets me excited. So we're very thankful for all the Lord's doing.
Yeah, that's right. And for you guys that have been listening here before, you guys know that if you wanted to meet up with us live and in person and do one of the Midnight Ride Lives, this is one of the things that's going on. But there's also 18 speakers, over 30 presentations, music being performed, all at SpiracyCon 2025 that is in Cave City, Kentucky. So the link is in the description for that. David and myself will be there. We'll be speaking. You'll get an opportunity to meet us, and also lots of other people that are going to be fascinating to listen to what they have to say. So it'll really be awesome. We're really looking forward to it. Also, Mike Edwards, who you're going to hear tonight, is going to be speaking. There's other people that I have not announced yet that you guys are going to be really excited about. And so make sure you guys check out your tickets, go look at it, see if you can make it, because I promise you, after I make the next announcements, I'm pretty sure tickets are going to go very, very fast. So with that being said, David, tell us what you guys got going on tomorrow on FOJC.
Tomorrow night on Sunday Night Live on FOJC Radio Underground Church YouTube channel, we're going to be having a Bible study. I'm going to be leading a study in the book of Hebrews. So if you like to study the Bible, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central, FOJC Radio, Underground Church, you are welcome.
All right, David. So I'm ready if you're ready.
I say let's ride. That's what I say.
I say let's ride. So, guys, tonight I'm just going to give you guys a rundown of what kind of stuff we're going to be talking about. David talked a little bit about it in the intro, but we're going to be discussing different kinds of sleeper cells that are active and that are actually prophesied by an occult writing to happen, and they're going to be coming in two phases. This is how World War III supposedly starts. And we also, last week, David brought us through several biblical scenarios that show that we are possibly getting ready to unfold one of the final prophecies, the final war that breaks the nations and allows for the coming of our King. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the occult prophecy that kind of parallels this and what they expect to happen, because it's really important that we understand this, and it's important that we're very paying attention to what is actually going on around us, because a lot of people have kind of, given a deaf ear, I feel like, to the Bible, and maybe shrugged it off a lot, because it's like every time something happens, you have some guy that's like, this is the end of the world. It's coming. It's going to be here in 10 days, 2024, or 2023, 2021, whatever the date is. There's always this going on, and it's really numbed us to the idea of prophecy. But I think that most of us who have studied prophecy for a long time, even the ones who are not normally alarmists, not normally even thinking about these things, have started pepping up to this idea. We even have billionaires in Silicon Valley that are starting to worry that the Antichrist is coming and trying to convert people to Christianity. This is a real phenomenon going on right now, because people are believing it. Even high-level politicians are starting to wonder this. And so, David, I see that you got a book out real quick, and you probably want to say something. Do you want to say something?
I'm just looking through some things for later.
I was getting excited for a second. I saw you break out your book.
Yeah, I always got a bunch of books. Yes, I do.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about this. You guys, most of you have probably heard this this prophecy or plan. It's really titled as a plan, but it's Albert Pike Letter to Mazzini. And this, the thing about this, I think, that really strikes me, and I'm going to discuss it in a second, but is that really they played out perfectly. The first one, the second one, and now it looks like the third one here that we're getting ready to talk about, the Third World War, it looks like it's starting off exactly how it has been planned. And so here's what I'm going to read this. It says, the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. And we're going to talk about the second phase here in a minute. But what I think that we're witnessing manifest is exactly what's being talked about here. And they're natural enemies. They've been natural enemies since 1948 and maybe even before. But there is this hidden power that they're constantly at war with each other. But this is one of these things that, prediction wise, this is pretty impeccable and pretty interesting, this prediction, and especially when we see the second part of it. David, when we talk about Albert Pike here in this letter, who is Albert Pike to Freemasonry, to the occult world?
Albert Pike was the most influential Freemason of all time. His book, Morals and Dogma, is the most influential Masonic book of all time. And during the 1830s, there was a revival. The expose of the murder of Captain William Morgan, Charles Finney's conversion to Christianity, and his expose of Freemasonry. And in America, a revival broke out, led by Charles Finney and others. And at the forefront of that revival in the 1830s was people renouncing Freemasonry. 4/5 of the Freemasons had renounced Freemasonry by the time of the Civil War. After the Civil War, and Mr. Pike, who was a Civil War general for the Confederacy, he literally rebuilt Freemasonry into the juggernaut that it is. He is a huge Masonic figure, and he also is an Illuminist. His role in the Illuminati and his establishment of Palladium Freemasonry as a super right over all the Masonic orders, it is just, he is Mr. Big. On the ladder, he's Mr. Biggie right at the tippy top.
Man, yeah, the idea that this is all lining up so closely. We did a show about 2025, and Blavatsky and others who have predicted that in 2025 we're going to start seeing this otherworldly presence making itself known on Earth, and all of this stuff is aligning at the same time. It's very interesting how it's all playing out. And I've heard even talks, this is kind of besides the point of this broadcast, but there are talks about the disclosure. One of the I believe he was the officials, one of the high-level intelligence officials in Israel, was saying that Trump has been briefed on these and that they're being helped by these creatures, which blows my mind. Not that we don't have enough drama going on with sleeper cells and other things, but this is the kind of stuff that's all aligning at the same time, leading me further to believe that it's possible we are in that time of Bible prophecy. So lately, what we have going on, just to kind of get through what you guys need to hear about what's actually going on as far as arrests go. There's 2,500 Iranian nationals that have been apprehended in the southern border since 2021, and 130 that were arrested just in the last week. And that's not to mention how many we have other group cells that I don't know that I'm even supposed to be mentioning them because they're on documents and I don't want to get this video flagged. But if you look up the different cells and different known groups that are within the United States, you'll see that there's a lot more than what they're talking about. And they're not all just Iranian. Are groups, but there's also proxy groups that have been before led through proxy by Iranian officials and also by their money. So I did an interview with a gentleman. Give me 1 second. My mouse doesn't want to work here. So I did an interview with a gentleman named Mike Edwards, and I'm going to show you guys that interview. I talked to him, just asked him a few questions because I needed somebody that knows more than me about what's going on to speak on the subject. And so, like I said, Mike is going to be a guest at SpiracyCon. He's going to be talking about UFOs and aliens and other subjects possibly that we're going to be talking about. But Mike has seen a lot. He's been in the military, from what I understand, over 20 years, and most of that time was spent in special operations. And so he's seen a lot of stuff. So we're going to see what he has to say, and then we will comment on it. The sleeper cell actually something that we should worry about here in the... Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to make sure you guys can hear all that. I can't... All right, I think you guys can. United States.
Yeah, I do think it's a valid concern. There's probably 2 million or more, at least from the official counts, of people, like literal Muslims that came through the southern border. Not that the Muslims are bad, but a lot of these have been definitively linked through biometric systems to guys that we trapped or that we caught and released, or caught and detained at some point in Afghanistan and places like that. So a lot of those guys are confirmed. So I don't want, we're not supposed to be living our lives in fear. So I wouldn't tell people to be fearful of it, but just be aware of your surroundings. And I'll pause right there, and we can get into more of the details, but this stuff is all throughout the United States. It's actually not just coming through the southern border. They've gotten smarter with that. With the weakness of Canada, they're starting to come in through the north, being deposited there, flowing in through the Pacific Northwest, where we're at right now, and then even into Montana, which I was actually surprised that Montana is a big hub. And the cartels are actually facilitating a lot of these movements as well. So, but yeah, I'll pause there for if you want me to elaborate on anything else.
I actually just heard an interview on a podcast, Julian Dory podcast. There is a girl that was doing pieces on the cartels, and she said the same thing you're saying, that in Canada, during when they shut down the southern borders, they were openly able to come through Canada over and over and over again, all through that area. So that is alarming. And then before that, how many years was the border open?
Yeah. And that's the thing too. And what a lot of people don't realize is we just need to be aware of this. There's nothing we're going to do to stop it because our own government is facilitating this. Why? I don't know. Maybe they're going to try to orchestrate a fall of America, or potentially, from what I've seen, some of the influence behind this could be Israeli Mossad doing potential events here to solidify us into this thing with Iran. So I've heard some of that could be the reasoning behind it. But the funding ultimately is coming from the United States. I mean, there's multiple streams of it. But in Afghanistan, one of the things we found out when I was doing a lot of the rescues or evacs of people out of there was that the United States is spending 45 to 80 million US dollars a week in Afghanistan. We're pumping that money in there. That's a ton of money. That money is being used to facilitate equipment movements and also human movements through South America, Central America, up through the southern border, and other ways as well. And another thing too is not only is it human beings, there's equipment associated with this too. So when we pulled out of Afghanistan, as you guys know, Trump talked about it, $84 billion worth of equipment that was left behind. Well, talking to my Afghans while I was there, paying attention, these are intel operatives that I trained in Afghanistan. So I was gathering intel from them while we are trying to help them so that we could see the picture. And these guys were telling me that all that equipment was being sold to Pakistan first. It was also being sold to China and Russia and other places as well. Well, let's then a little bit after that tie in Ukraine. Ukraine kicks off. The United States is funding $150 billion worth of equipment or more, at least at the last time I looked at it, was about $150 to $200 billion worth of equipment and stuff into Ukraine. Well, I have buddies that are still in the military that were in charge of doing the audits on some of that equipment. And they found out that out of all the equipment we sent to Ukraine to support them against Russia, 98% of it was sold to Russia, China, Syria, Iran, and the Mexican drug cartel.
Whoa.
So a lot of that was sold to the cartel is funneling through the southern border. And that's been documented by certain people at the Border Patrol, but there's a lot of it that we're not seeing. They have like tunnels and stuff that they can move this stuff in. But then here's the thing, the attacks on Israel with Hamas and Hezbollah, that's being backed by Russia, Iran, and Syria, all elements who have this equipment that I believe they're funneling. Can't prove that, but there is some U.S. military equipment that is being funneled to leverage against Israel. So I just kind of see it all coming together as a head. Who knows when some of this stuff will pop off here in the United States? But I would just be aware of it and honestly try to stay away from built up places. I wouldn't be going to like pro football games. 4th of July, I would be very, very careful of 4th of July. I've heard incredible, legitimate intel reports from dudes that are in the military that they were expecting something to happen before the end of June. And I believe 4th of July is a good marker. I mean, it's a big day for America. I can see it being a day to strike. You know what I mean?
What does the common citizen look out for? What can they see? What are the signs?
Well, people have to get off their phones for one thing and have their eyes out and be observant. Pay attention to everything you see. Pay attention to cars driving by. My wife's good at it, and she was never in the military because she's observant. So that's the key. Pay attention to these things. Pay attention to people. You'll see people, when you're really looking out for it, you're going to see people doing weird things. People do weird things naturally, so those can be false triggers as well. So you kind of have to rule that stuff out. But just being more observant, looking for conglomerations of people. A lot of times it's going to be military-aged males, so 18 to 20-year-old and older up to about 30 or 40 years old. So we're looking for that. Typically, they're going to be more physically fit, stuff like that. Obviously, we're looking for people with Arab descent because we know that's a big sponsor of terrorism coming from Iran and places like that. So profiling people as well, which, cops do that stuff. It's just a common sense thing to do when you're looking for a certain demographic. But just being aware and being observant, I think that's the key, and stay the heck out of big built up areas. Stay the heck out of big things like Disney World. I would stay the heck out of pro football games, big shopping centers and stuff like that on certain days, because those are going to be targets. I think they would be most likely going to target places where they can get a lot of people in one spot, like a mall attack, right? These guys come up and then all of a sudden they're piling in every entrance of a mall like they've done overseas before. Those are things that I would look out for, but the key is just to be observant and pay attention. Don't be looking at your phone. Stay the heck off your phone and be observant when you're out and about walking around.
If you had to give me an assessment, let's say I am the mayor of Midtownville, like a level of town that's not high level, not low level, medium level town, probably, anywhere from 100,000 citizens or less. And what are my chances in this town of my police force and maybe somebody being able to get to me and help me in time if this type of attack were to take place?
Yeah, well, law enforcement's not really trained to deal with a lot of that stuff. Some places they are, like in the bigger cities like LA, Miami, places like that, where they have SWAT teams that are legitimately trained. But most small town police forces, they just don't have the funding to even do basic training, much less more advanced training like that. So I wouldn't count on them. I would talk to them. Like if you have connections there, I would talk to them and see what they're aware of, see what they're tracking, and have that rapport built with them. But just, I would say, honestly, people need to be prepared to defend themselves. You know, ultimately, these systems, if something big and super chaotic happens, let's say some sort of nuclear attacks happen here in association with the stuff in Iran, say Russia gets involved, China, whoever, however it happens, that's going to change a lot of things. If we start getting lots of attacks like that, little bitty skirmishes in small towns, I don't think anybody's going to be worried about. So I think a lot of it could fall back onto us. And me personally, I don't like to trust anybody for my safety except for myself and, you know, Yahweh the Father, because obviously he can do all things. But physically here on earth, I only trust what I can have physical control of myself.
Yeah. And based on your intel, what are probably the most dangerous cities in the United States when it comes to terror cells or sleeper cells in general?
I've heard a lot of talk about St. Louis, Missouri being a hotbed. And actually, I would probably tie that to a lot of those like the bigger cities in the core of the country. It seems like from what I've heard, they're coming in from the north and going to the core of the country, coming in from the south and going into the core of the country. They could be potentially hiding out in rural areas, but being prepared to attack. I would say the Pacific Northwest is a place to look out for as well. Places like Washington State, Oregon, places like that, Montana, the more populated areas of Montana, because I've heard credible reports of them coming in through that area a lot. But yeah, I think St. Louis, Missouri is one of the cities that I definitely heard. I would watch out for Chicago, places like Detroit too, that already have bigger demographics of those kinds of people, because they're going to be able to go into those cities and blend in a lot easier as well.
In these situations, how do you blend in? How do you keep yourself from being a target? Because ultimately, eventually, there's going to be so many of them, you're not going to be able to avoid them. I mean, just by the population, just by them populating, eventually one day they will be the majority, which is what I explain to people. Most people say, why should I care? Because one day they will be the majority. They're populating so much faster than any other nationality out there, and they're born into that religion. So how do people keep themselves from looking like a target in a world that might end up to where we're subservient to a group of people who are Islamic jihadists?
I think the easiest way is, and you guys preach it just like I do, is follow the Most High. Because when you're keeping the Sabbath day holy, you're not likely to be at a pro football game on the Sabbath day and getting blown up. There's things like that. You're keeping the feasts of the Lord, which is going to have you at certain places at certain times. Right. You're also wearing the full armor of God, right? So as we're studying the scriptures, we're aware. So we see things to come. Our discernment's better. We're going to target things. The Spirit works through us when we're obedient, and that's that armor, and that's our biggest defense. I mean, that's literally the only defense. I mean, the training that I have, dude, I can't stop anything by myself, man. And I can't see everything by myself either. But I think that's our best protection, man. And He hides us. And I think, His ways are setting us up for the end time so that we can survive and persist through all of the things that are coming. So I think that's the best way.
I agree with you, man. That's a great answer to that.
Yeah, back to the children. You were talking about how Muslims tend to be really prolific as far as having lots of children. It's not only that, too. I just talked to a guy not too long ago. I was on a podcast with him. He was another guest on the same podcast, and I saw his testimony. He believes like we believe, and he rescues children that have been trafficked down in Central America and South America. And one of the things that I learned from him is there's a lot of adult male mortality in that area just because jobs are dangerous. There's no protections like in America, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of men die young. And then there's crime, guys getting shot on the street just going to get some bread. So there's a lot of families in Central and South America that don't have a father in the household. So the woman is then struggling to raise this kid, right? So she has to do things that she may have to do that aren't so desirable to pay the bills and keep the food on the table. But a lot of times these children are sold, and or they're just left on the streets, and then they're scooped up by cartels and stuff like that. They're abused in ways, I don't want to get into details on that stuff, but they're psychologically set up and torn down to become indoctrinated. and these people are getting scooped up, lots of children with no parents there or in the United States. So they're just literally cannon fodder that these guys can raise up in this idolatry in the United States, and in this not idolatry, but this idealism within the United States. So that's something to look at too. But yeah, I'd like to end. People shouldn't be fearful. We shouldn't be fearful. We just need to be observant and pay attention to the things, be aware of our surroundings. When you go to the grocery store, pay attention when you're going to your car. Look if somebody's following you. Just keep your eyes peeled. You don't have to be looking and necking like that to let everybody see that you're looking, but just walk in a way that so you can set yourself up to where you're facing in directions so that you can be observant, so you're not turkey necking all the time and making yourself a signature. But we still need to be observant and just be aware of what's going on around us.
All right, David. So I want to get your thoughts on what Mike had to say, and then we will move on to another aspect of sleeper cells that a lot of people, I don't think very many people, if anybody hardly, is talking about. There are people that have talked about this subject before, but it's becoming more predominant. So, David, what are your thoughts?
What great advice. I mean, obedience will take care of pretty much everything. And not only if you're walking in obedience, are you going to be geographically and physically where you need to be and not where you shouldn't be, but also the divine protection of God is something that we don't want to take lightly. And this is brought about through obedience and walking in the way of obedience to the commands of God. Great advice.
Yeah, even a legendary recon Army Ranger like that, like he said, he couldn't even protect himself without the protection from God.
Yeah.
None of us really have any chance in any of this stuff. We might have good preparations and it might help us, but there are times and places that we have no protection and there's nothing we can do other than rely on God. So I love that
Amen.
advice.
That is great.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the next aspect of this, and I want to highlight the second phase of Albert Pike's plan for the 3 world wars here. I'm going to read it here to you. It's highlighted in green. It says, "Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on the issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and one of the most bloody turmoils. Then everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilizations, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an idea, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time." And so, David, this sets us up for these mind control sleeper cells, which I have asked you to prepare about a 10 to 15 minute segment on talking about this. You can go longer if you want. Please do if you have more material. But we want to discuss these type of sleeper cells because these, I believe, are what they're talking about as this next phase. And I think even 2 Timothy talks about these people. But David, give us your rundown of this type thing. And I think a lot of people, just real quick, a lot of people have heard some of the subject talked about with Russ Dizdar in the satanic super soldier stuff that he brought out. And he's probably one of the first people to bring forth a lot of this research. But David Carrico has ministered to a lot of people who have actually been generationally involved in these things. I think that if there were a Wikipedia article on all of the people that have dealt with this subject, David has to be one of the top 5 in that subject. David and Donna have been dealing with these types of people, ministering to them for 40 plus years. So David, give us a rundown, please.
Well, Russ talked about the Black Awakening, when these individuals would be triggered to just like Mr. Pike said, generate chaos to overwhelm people, to make people feel that they're literally hopeless. And it's amazing the small amount of people it takes to cause a revolution. The actual figures of the people that took part in the Russian Revolution, it was less than 5,000 people overthrew the whole country. And in the American Revolution, the statistics of the people that actually fought in the war are amazingly small. Revolution can be carried out by cells of people working like this, doing the very things there that Mr. Pike outlined. Back in the 50s, William Guy Carr called this the World Revolutionary Movement, and they always go by the same playbook. And it's interesting that you mentioned earlier that it's now rumored that Mr. Trump is working with these other entities, these other worldly entities, who the world would call aliens, whom we would call the fallen angels and the Nephilim. And all the way back, I have a book here. It's called Ruth Montgomery wrote this book, Strangers Among Us, in 1979, and she claimed that in 1979 there were 60 groups of walk-ins that were organized and in contact with one another. And the way that she put it in this 1979 book, it says the guides say that the brotherhoods are going to play a tremendous part in the preparation of earthlings for the shift of the axis. And I know it would have been probably in the late 80s, I was doing street ministry in Evansville, Indiana, there on Columbia Street. And at that time, there was a house there for skinheads, a big 2-story white house. And I was witnessing to one of these guys, and he was showing me all of his tattoos, and he said, I can go to this city and I can show them a tattoo and they'll know I'm this level, that level, and I can stay here. And he could travel all over among this network of houses of the group that he was involved in. And the way he put it to me, he said that the skinheads are the foot soldiers of the New World Order. That is just the way that he put it. And these people, the statistics are there. They have had so many years and so much money to prepare for what they're doing. And another statistic that overlaps and plays into this is the amount of foreign land that is owned by the Saudi royals, by the Chinese. It's staggering, the amount of acres of foreign of land in America owned by people who would not have our best interest at heart. And the whole concept of the super soldier, it's something that's extremely biblical. And I'm gonna give you a few scriptures about that. And it is just really going to be a huge part of the execution of the plan. And just like Mr. Pike said, they're going to release these people, and there's going to be a coordination of groups bringing chaos, murder, terror, and this is the way that they've always done things. Now, another book, as I was thinking about the broadcast tonight, I was looking at this book that was written in 2013 by Tex Mars. It's called Robot Alchemy. And it's hard to believe that this book was written over 20 years ago, way ahead of its time. And in this book, he was talking about the research that they were doing in developing robotic insects. And just this week, China has announced that they now have a drone the size of a mosquito. And I don't like that very well, but it's a fact. It's a fact that they actually do. Now, let's look at a few scriptures here. And I want to look at the book of Enoch and chapter 15 and verse 8. It says, and now the giants who are produced from the spirits of flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. And the book of Enoch tells us, and I think this is biblically valid, that when these Nephilim that were the product of fallen angels and human women, that when they died, their disembodied spirits roamed the earth, and they're what we see in the New Testament called devils. And the hatred of these spirits and of these creatures for the human race, we don't want to miss. In Enoch 15 and 11, it says, "And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. These spirits shall rise up against the children of men and against the women, because they have proceeded from them." And these entities were so easy. The spirits, after they were dead, the example of the so-called walk-ins of Ruth Montgomery. And a walk-in is basically someone that voluntarily relinquishes the control of their body to one of these spirits. We're talking about someone that has achieved pretty much total demon possession, and they're nothing but a slave to their master. Now, let's look at a few scriptures, and we can follow throughout the scriptures the impact of this in regard to military warfare. In Genesis chapter 10 and verse 8, probably the first example of a super soldier would be Nimrod. It says, "And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth." A mighty one there is the Gibborim, and Nimrod was not born a Gibborim. He was born a human, but he began to be a Gibborim. He did something to himself, or something was done to him to make him a transhuman, if you will, a more than a human. And it says that Nimrod was a mighty hunter upon the earth. And I believe that he was a hunter of humans, that he would hunt and enslave all of those that he could. And one of the oldest, well, the oldest book in the Bible by pretty much a scholarly consensus is the book of Job. And in the book of Job, chapter 16 and verse 14, it says, "He breaketh me with breach upon breach. He runneth upon me like a giant." And Job makes a comparison. He felt pursued by God and overwhelmed by all of the things that had come upon him. And he compared this to the way that giants pursue human beings. These Nephilim, if the Lord had not intervened, they would have totally polluted or destroyed the human race. And that's why the Lord intervened in the flood. And the first full-blown super soldier we see is in 1 Samuel chapter 14 and in verse 17, and this was Goliath of Gath, and also his brothers, and it talks about their brothers of Goliath having 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. And it hasn't been that long ago when John, on one of his Midnight Ride presentations, he showed the banner there in Gaza, and they had the fist there in front of the militants and 6 fingers on the hand. That's a clue, my friends. And this is right in the area where Goliath, the super soldier, come from. And I want to read the scripture in 1 Samuel 17, and there's a real spiritual signature on this. And I want you to note the 666 in this that's embedded within this scripture in 1 Samuel 17. We'll begin in verse 4. And it says, "And there went a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits in a span." There's 6, number 1. Now, let's count the number of implements in his armor. And he had, number 1, a helmet of brass upon his head. He was armed with a coat of mail, that's 2. And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. He had greaves of brass, there's number 3, upon his legs. A target of brass between his shoulders, there's 4. The staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, there's 5. And his spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron, there's the another 6, and one bearing a shield went before him. There's his sixth piece of armor. There's a 666 embedded all over this super soldier, and he was absolutely controlled by this Philistine army, and he was the main event and the forefront of that which they did in this battle. And he was not the only super soldier, and it was so easy to recruit these beings for warfare because they hated mankind. So these were controlled and used by the Philistines. And in First Chronicles, I want to read in chapter 20, beginning in verse 5, and it talks about the brothers of Goliath. And it says, "And there was war again with the Philistines, and Elhanah, the son of Jair, slew Lami, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, whose spear staff was like a weaver's beam. And yet again there was war at Gath, where a man of great stature, whose fingers and toes were 24, 6 on each hand and 6 on each foot, and he also was the son of the giant," which shows us that not only were these born from fallen angels and human women, but giants could breed with giants and other human women and produce more offspring. And this is the showing that these creatures were used as super soldiers by the Philistines. And this is in the very area of Gaza, which right now is at the heart of this plan that Mr. Pike and Mr. Zini laid out in the 1800s for the final conflict to be between the Zionists and the Muslims right there where it is. Now, in 2 Samuel, I want to read 2 Samuel chapter 23 and verse 20, and we see another aspect of super soldiers here. In 2 Samuel 23 and 20, it says, "And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kezbeel, who had done many acts, he slew 2 lion-like men of Moab. He went down also and slew a lion in the midst of a pit in time of snow." There was a lion-like man of Moab. And right now, it's a fact that they are doing research to genetically alter our soldiers. And one of the plans is to implant the gene that cows have to where they can digest and eat grass, to where the soldier, when he's out there, he can just eat grass like a cow if he can just stay out there on the battlefield. And the genetic experiments, I know you're well known and you're very much aware of these, the implementations of animal genes into humans, and of course the forefront of this in the militaries of the world, and there's multiple countries going headlong into this, is to create that super soldier to have the edge in combat. It's the very same thing that the Philistines were doing with Goliath and his brothers. It is purely a military conquest. Now, there's another aspect here that I want to talk about. This is a book called The Cloak of the Illuminati by William Henry. And say hello to Tony Stark. Yeah, that's right. And he talks here about, and I'll just read here on page 191. He says, in March 2002, through the U.S. Army announced it is giving the Massachusetts Institute of Technology $50 million, that's a lot of cabbage, to establish the Institute for Soldier Nanotechnologies, ISN, the Institute for Nanotechnologies. You can even look it up. They have websites. It says whose primary goal is to develop a new battle suit for special forces that would heal them, shield them, and protect them against chemical and biological warfare. And this is literally Iron Man, Tony Stark stuff, the things that they are developing. And this was way back in 2002. I wonder what they have come up with. But this idea of the sleeper cell and the super soldier, this has been one of the schemes of Satan ever since the Tower of Babel to try to gain not only the plan to corrupt the human genome to where the Savior could not be born fully God and fully man, but the actual control of the human race through using these entities and through genetic corruption of the animal and the human genome. So this is very much a reality, and this is something that at this time there is a no better time and a need for the Israel of God to be aware of this, because the very events that John has brought up with just the sheer numbers. I mean, there's thousands of these people that have every reason to hate and want to destroy our country that are here. They're well-funded. They've had a lot of time. They've got everything going for them. And virtually, thank God they're catching quite a few of them, and thank God for that. But all of us know they can't catch them all. So we need to be aware of this. And just like Mr. Edwards says, this isn't, we don't move on fear. We move by faith. But we also, by common sense, we need to be aware of this, that we can take precautions in our homes and when we're out, that we can see these signals and be aware of what the devil's doing.
Yeah, David, and in a lot of our research, we've talked about this. Actually, when me and you met, it was over a particular subject involving some of this type of programming that was going on in our hometown.
Yeah.
And one thing that comes to mind about this that I wanted to have you explain to people in a light way. We don't want to get too graphic with this in case there are younger people watching. But from what I understand, this is a generational thing in a lot of these people. Not all of them, because there is technologies like you mentioned that we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But some of the rituals that they do to them from the beginning, from the time that they're born, even I've heard even before then, they use torture methods. But this is kind of brutal, the way that they make these programmings happen. And the thing is, we're seeing it at the highest level of people. We're not just seeing it in poor families or anything like that. We're talking about Illuminati families. And I can't tell you my friend's name, and I can't tell you her roommate's name, but I am telling you a true story about her time in Beverly Hills. But she was roommates with a very, if I said the name, you guys would know exactly who it is. I'm talking multi-billionaire, just owning major industry type person. And this person didn't even know where to bite forks. They didn't know where their child would go and just use the bathroom on the floor. The maid would come and clean it up. They just didn't have a real idea of functioning life. Very controlled, and in a way that people around them were, handlers. There were handlers around them. So they're living in a kind of prison of their own mind, even though from the outside sometimes it looks like, oh, these people are living a glamorous life. Ultimately, there's a prison attached to that. You said that they like to control. When did they start using some of the methods that you guys are finding people going through? And just talk a little bit about those methods without mentioning the gory details.
All right, we'll try to give you the PG version. But in the 1950s, Timothy Leary was working for the prison system in the state of Massachusetts, and he was actually doing experiments on prisoners of mind control. And he would use, and back then LSD was legal, and he would give them LSD, he would use music, and he would use fear. And these are the elements, he said, that with the proper components of these, he could basically do anything to anybody, he claimed. He said he could make a straight person gay, a gay person straight, and it was unlimited what he said he could do in the proper setting with these elements. And the fear element is one of the basic things of satanic initiation. And the head of the coven emerges as the hero figure and the savior. And many times in SRA, they are literally buried in a coffin and left there. And then they're dug up, and the head of the coven will reach down and lift them up. And just like in Freemasonry in the third degree, every Freemason plays the part of Hiram Abiff in a mock death, burial, and resurrection, where the worshipful master raises him from the dead with the strong grip of the lion paw. And in this, what they have learned to do, and this has been researched and it's made a definitive science. This came into the military in the MK Ultra program, which I know most of our listeners are familiar with. But like John said, much of this comes through generational families who raise their children in a way that they are programmed from a very young age. And they set up within these people what is called triggers. And it literally is possible, and this is just like in the Manchurian Candidate scenario, to where with a word, a phrase, a phone call, they can trigger this person and kick them into another personality. And they literally have learned that they can create other personalities with using the trauma-based mind control. And they know how to split people, they know how to control people, and they know how to trigger people. And these things can be speeded up with, some of these come from birth, and some of these can be speeded up in like the MK Ultra, where they do the high intensity shock treatment and all kinds of the things that they can do now with drugs and electronics in the mind. It's just like the old movie where they had the eyes that they were pried open. The name of that movie, I can't remember, but anyway, this is just a part of what they do. And this is the concept that they have. And literally the ability that through someone making phone calls to various places around the country, he can activate sleeper cells. And literally many of these people are willing to cooperate in this. There are many groups that are invested into willing participants, and there are a lot of people that are ready to fulfill Manchurian Candidate roles that will gladly give their life up to take out the lives of certain individuals. And when a person is willing to give their life up, it is hard to stop them from taking the life of another. So these are the scenarios that we're looking at these sleeper cells and the whole area of satanic ritual abuse. This is just another layer and the tools that they have in their tool chest. But these are things that are taken extremely serious by not only our government, but by all of the leading governments in the world. They are researching headlong into these things, and we need to be aware of it because it is a part of the world that we live in.
And I'd like for people to kind of understand what this means, because this means that something could trigger these people, and the person that you've known for maybe years, maybe your whole entire life, can all of a sudden switch, boom, and they're trained. Not only have they switched personalities, but that other personality is trained in a certain art that may be combative, and that other personality never knew. I've heard stories of basically somebody coming to get ministering from Russ Dizdar, actually, and then the lady pulls out a knife and tries to kill him.
Yeah.
I've been in a situation, some of you older Now You See TV listeners from back in the day will remember this documentary. The documentary has been taken down. But David, you'll remember this, but I was in Denver. I was filming with a SRA survivor. I'm not going to mention the name because very popular name. Everybody would know who it is. And I don't want to discredit him in any way, because I just don't know. All I know is this is what happened. So I'm at his house. We're filming, and this is right after we have gone to several satanic sites. I'm talking about tunnels that are outside the city, ritual sites, Bible burn pages that are all over the place. You remember this?
Oh, yeah, very well.
And I'm at his house, and he shows me a notebook, and then this notebook has pictures, and each picture has a word attached to it. I think there's like a page for each page had like 2 or 3 pictures, and in each one of those pictures, it was almost themed, right? Like one would be looking military, one would looking like, somebody that's getting picked on, one would look like a small child, and it's all him, but these pictures are all themed, and each page had a theme. And so he showed me this book, and he told me that they would hand this book to his handlers, and that's how they would use them. They would have these codes, and whatever they needed to use them for, they would look at that code, they would say the code, boom, and this guy acts and behaves that way. So I didn't really think about that when I was, I was doing the documentary filming, and I'm looking through the pages and I'm reading it, and I was like, wonder what that means, and I say the word, and like instantly, and I'm thinking this guy's healed all 100%, right? Instantly, the guy switches from being the personality that we talk to being the personality of a young child. And within seconds, boom, switch, different person I'm talking to. And so this is how a lot of people can go unrecognized for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are some signs to look for in that, David, too? I think it's important that people understand, like, what kind of signs can I see in a person that could be potentially be somebody that gets to flip out like they did in that one movie. I can't remember with the English secret society where the people just started going crazy and killing each other there off of a musical tone or something.
Yeah. And individuals, when they switch, as we call it, they will, a lot of times they'll talk in a different voice, in the voice of a child or older, gruff, different tone. And you can just tell that they have gone from one personality to another. And you can watch and observe these things in these individuals. And a lot of times, and it's even possible, and it sounds bizarre, a lot of people don't believe it, but I certainly do, that there are people that can be triggered into another personality. They can actually commit crimes, even to the extent of murder or torture of another individual. They can switch back and not even know what they did. And it's frightening. This is one of the most horrifying things. Nobody likes to be controlled. And when people control people's minds to this extent, it's a frightening thing. And this is something, and they really, this is why they call television programming, and why in the movie industry they control the playwriters guilds to where they can institute predictive programming in movies. They are programming the masses to believe what they want them to believe. This is done through the repeated use of buzzwords, and I've seen a couple of them here lately. And not too long ago, back when they were having protests, every news show we would listen to, they would say, the peaceful protest, over and over and over like a mantra, and you could see the buildings burning behind them. And then just here recently, over and over, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, over and over, hundreds of times over the news. This is programming, and it puts people into the mindset, well, yeah, this is true. Whatever we do is justified because Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. It's programming, it's mind control, it's done on an individual level, and it's also done to the masses. This is a huge, huge part of the Illuminati plan to take over the world. And it's just a fact. It's where we're at.
This right here, David, is a conference coming up in October called the Super Soldier Activation Conference. And I went here and just kind of screenshotted some of this stuff. But these people that are speaking here claim to be whistleblowers for secret space programs, secret energy healer programs, MK Ultra people, all of these people claiming to be here. And if you go down here where I'm scrolling, it talks about how, they're trying to activate people for their abilities, and soul survivors, they call them soul survivors, and there's like a ton of these different people. I listen to way more of these podcasts than I am I will ever listen to again, and a lot of these people seem very hurting people, but they all believe that they have this supernatural ability and that they're going to be activated at some point in some time. And this could literally be remnants of what we're talking about here. This is really, really interesting when you look at it in that tone.
Yeah. And this now segues over into what we're seeing in the UFO community and UFO whistleblowers. And this latest whistleblower that came out that was featured on the News Nation special. And he was talking about, and it even showed him how that he was communicating with the orbs, and he could call them in and was undoubtedly having communication between these orbs, which are just spirits. And Louis Elizondo, who was a well-known UFO whistleblower, wrote a book. I was really impressed with his book. And Mr. Elizondo talked about how remote viewing, he said that he was very, very capable at remote viewing, and he talked about the extent of how many field agents in the CIA and FBI were using remote viewing on a regular basis. Yeah. And he said that he had got quite good at it. And of course, this is nothing but an occult practice that is engaging devils and using spirits. And we're seeing here the people that are involved in these things, like in this conference and like in these UFO task force groups, they are having supernatural occult abilities develop in them because of the contacts with the spirits that they are establishing.
Well, that brings me right here to this next slide I wanted to bring up. This is Joseph McMoneagle, and a lot of people have heard him recently. He's gone on the tour with the podcast all over the place talking about this, but he claimed to even have the ability to connect and to influence people with these targets. And I did some research on this, David, because I wanted to figure out what happened with this project. And so these are a couple of the papers. You can look, you can see the CIA number right here, the release. This was released in 2022. Or I'm sorry, 2002, 5/22/2002, and I wanted to read their conclusions and recommendations. So, and actually, I'm not even going to read it. You can read it, but I'll tell you what I gathered from it. What I gathered from it is they realize it works, but they didn't want to spend any money on figuring out that it works. They want to figure out why it works and what they can do to actually utilize this and other technologies. And so, a lot of these companies, if you read the entire paper, are still off doing things. This didn't stop. So the CIA had it originally from, I believe, in the 70s, and then they handed over it to the DIA, and they did it for, this went on for 20-something years, so millions of dollars spent on this project. So a lot of value and money going into this project. And when we're talking about people that are, what I believe what's going on here, and I could be wrong, I don't want to, not every situation may warrant this at all, but there's a real possibility that the way that they're getting this information is through demonic intervention. And if that's the case, then this demonic intervention and all of these other things that we're talking about are going to work hand in hand together. And this is becoming super popular and kind of worrisome. David, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're exactly right. And, it's all the way back to the watchers that came down on Mount Hermon in the book of Enoch. It says that they taught men the secrets of how to do the various arts and the various crafts. And it's fallen angel knowledge. And it's directly, just like in the Bible, it says the last days that men will follow after doctrines of devils and seducing spirits. And it's literally devils directly communicating and influencing and controlling the minds of people. And they can give information, they can give power, and they literally, people get addicted to these spirits. They don't want delivered from them because they love them and they love the power and the abilities that they get from these spirits.
Yeah, and it seems that more and more, because of the disclosure thing kind of going on with the UFOs, the UAPs, it doesn't seem like they're mincing words about it anymore. It seems like they're just very much accepting that this is the reality.
Yeah.
And it really, when you really think about that and you think about all the psychic phenomenon and all of these different things, this is kind of what was prophesied for the 2025 as well. At the same time that these entities are making themselves known, people would elevate their psychic powers according to these occult prophetic revelations. And we're talking about, probably demonic revelations given to them, letting them know that this is going to happen. But these things are written that would happen, and we're seeing it. Now, mind you, the demonic energy is probably the ones running the information, running the news. So they were trying to make this happen. It's not that they can maybe see the future, but they kind of know their plan. Like, okay, this is when the sun aligns here. We know we can operate here. And because they do operate in those times, they operate on solstices, they operate on star alignments and all of that. So in their mind, they have a plan, I think, that lines up with a lot of these alignments. And there's a lot of stuff going on with that recently too. I mean, we're getting ready to enter into a alignment that I'm going to talk about some other time. Now's not the time because I don't have enough information on it, but it's the last time we entered that was World War II. So it's very interesting to see that kind of stuff, but they operate on these timelines just like God operates on his timeline, his feast, what the Bible calls his Moedim, which is why here at Now You See TV, we do try to follow those rather than the worldly ones, because we can see God's timeline and God's calendar in all of this.
Amen.
And I wanted to read one more thing before we get off here, and this is a word of encouragement. It's also advice. It's something that is written in Jeremiah 29:7, and it really spoke to me today, and I think that it should speak to us all. Jeremiah 29:7, it says, "And seek the peace of the city within. I have caused you to be carried away captives, and pray unto the Lord for it. For in the peace thereof shall you have peace." And what this is saying is, like, seek peace in the city. Pray that your city's in peace, because if your city's in peace, you're going to be at peace.
Amen.
And we have to know that God will bless areas. We see in biblical judgment, it's rarely, the entire landmass of the world, which we're probably going to experience eventually, but there's places that are worse than others, and we know this. There's places that have done greater abominations than others. There's places that have, been the code of God's laws in so many ways that it just seems like surprising how, I guess, merciful God is at this point, because there's been so much going on that just seems so wretched that we're all being revealed this to. And I just pray that through all of this, hate doesn't dwell in our hearts, and we know that God reigns and his love reigns. And through the Muslim community, there are so many of them that are open to Jesus. In fact, Jesus is actively pursuing them through dreams, through visions. And so there is also an opportunity here. Some people aren't scared, and that's great. We shouldn't be scared. We shouldn't be afraid. We should be bold. We shouldn't pray for safety. We should pray for boldness, in my opinion. And
Amen.
so, David, do you got anything else you want to add before we end this broadcast out?
Well, it was just fantastic. You really have a gift to be able to put your finger on just what needs to be talked about, and I think you certainly did that tonight. What a timely topic. It really spoke to my heart, and I know it did to our listeners also. And I'm just really thankful to realize that we're in a time where we have the most important job at all, speaking the gospel of Jesus Christ into the hearts and lives of people. That is our job, and I'm so thankful that we're able to tell people just how great Jesus is and how he can change your life, how he can give you peace and a purpose and a meaning to live for. Pray that prayer. God, be merciful to me, a sinner, and believe in the death of Christ upon the cross as the payment for your sin debt. You can have eternal life and new birth in Jesus' name.
Amen to that. Thank you guys so much. And like I said, fear not, and we will be with you guys next week. Make sure that you guys pound that like button. We're going to do it together on the count of 3, because we need to get that like button pounded. It needs it, and it really just needs it so bad, and you're doing it a favor. You're doing us a favor, and you're share this thing out, because look, guys, without you guys, our reach is going to be very limited. We need you to share out this stuff. If you don't support us in any other way, that's the very least that I feel like you can do if you enjoyed any aspect of this broadcast tonight. So thank you guys so much, and here we go on the count of 3. You ready, David?
Yes. 1, 2, 3. Boom.
Yes, guys. Thank you so much for that. We felt it all the way over here. We love you guys. And until next Saturday night, David, end us out.
As always, with great thanks to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and to each and every one of you in the Midnight Ride listening audience. We could not do what we do without you. So until next Saturday night, 10 p.m. Central, a big high five and good night, everybody, from the Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up, rise up, rise up.